Good evening and welcome to San Francisco SF Commons. We are delighted to bring to you Sam Ronan, who's running for Congress in Ohio, District 1. Some of you might ask, why Sam Ronan? Well, if you had been watching the mainstream media lately, you would find that there is a rehash or a going back to a story in 2016 when Bernie Sanders ran an extremely strong campaign. Bernie Sanders supporters believe that that election was rigged. As a matter of fact, there is a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit on that case. Let's look back at a race for the Democratic National Committee chairmanship that happened last year.
Recently you said that the primary was rigged against Bernie Sanders. Later the same day you said you misspoke when you made those comments. Which is it?
Well, here are the facts. Hillary Clinton won the Democratic primary. Hillary Clinton also won the popular vote. At the same time, because of the absence of transparency in the Democratic primary, there was a crisis of trust that ensued. And what we need in the chair of the Democratic Party is to make sure that in fact and in perception, every single day, you are fair and neutral.
Secretary, 10 seconds. Was it rigged or not?
Again, the process, because of the absence of transparency, it created that crisis of relevance, and it created the distrust that people didn't trust the outcome.
Mr. Ronan, was it rigged or not?
Thank you. I was going to interrupt anyway. The point is, not only was the primary rigged, it was also rigged all across the country because the DNC has never allowed outsiders or brand new people to rise through the ranks. It has always been an insider game, and it has been that way for a very, very long time. That is where that lack of trust has come into play, because not only was Bernie Sanders snubbed, not only did it look like Hillary Clinton had bought or muscled her way into it, then those supporters were denied a chance to speak at the convention, and that was the final straw.
Welcome, Sam. So you probably didn't know what we were playing there, but we were playing the debate that you had, the DNC debate, when Jack Tapper asked all of you guys if there was a rigged election. And of course, you said, yes, there was. The Tom Perez, who won, of course, was, what do you think with Donna Brazil's confession?
And that's actually what it is. It's a confession. I still remember that debate and that question because everybody loved it. They turned it into a meme and everything. But it's not even a question of whether or not the DNC rigged the primaries. Obviously they did. There's all sorts of evidence to support this, even back when the race was still ongoing. Donna Brazil coming forward isn't a surprise. It's not a shock to anybody that what she's saying is true was in fact true. The shock is that it was Donna Brazil to mention it because she was complicit in part of the rigging process. Exactly, yeah. And she was fired from the DNC for it. Now, this isn't anything against Donna Brazil, the person, the lady, the person I got to meet during this DNC chair race, but it is against Donna Brazil, the leader. My question is more so, is she doing it because she's trying to show a willingness to listen to progressives, extending them an olive branch, trying to give them a sense of closure? Is this a rift within the party that we might finally be able to take advantage of? Or is this something more insidious, something to overshadow a different activity, such as purging the progressives from top leadership positions in the DNC?
That's a question that had been asked because remember when she leaked the debate questions to Hillary Clinton. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. What do you think?
It doesn't add up either. For one, I'm pretty sure Hillary Clinton could have answered those questions with or without any sort of outside support, because I know I could have. I know Bernie Sanders could have. I know anybody watching could have answered those questions because they were questions that anybody should be able to answer. What would you do if North Korea decided to improve their nuclear weapons program? What would you do with the war on terror to improve citizens' lives in the country? What about universal health care? What about these different policy issues? If you don't have an answer to that question
Right.
and running for the presidency, I mean, maybe you shouldn't be running for the office. Now, that being said, what Donna Brazile did, again, it would be speculation on my part as to the why, but of course, that is what happened. She did. It's who cares about motivation? It happened, and now she's on the rules committee for the
Exactly.
Democratic Party. It doesn't make sense to me. What I think should happen.
Right.
I mean, if we go back to my previous answer with Donna Brazile is giving an olive branch to the progressive movement, the people that were completely pushed out from the party.
Right.
Then what needs to happen next is that there needs to be a strong call to action from the remaining progressives, Keith Ellison, Donna Brazile, whoever else is in the party, Michael, one of the vice chairs. They need to call for a re-election of the entire executive board and the entire national delegates.
Okay.
If you want to truly show unity and an olive branch and a willingness to rebuild and to rebrand, then you have to give that olive branch to people. People must have a voice in their party, and they don't have that. We saw that with Kimberly Ellis when she ran for the California chairmanship. I was a strong supporter of Kimberly Ellis. I support her to this very day. It's the same problem. It was an insider's game.
They didn't give her anything either, right?
Oh, of course not. They pushed her to the wayside. When you got Nina Turner, the nurses unions, and Kimberly Ellis all on one stage, you can't give them an inch or else they will take over completely. We've seen that. Nina Turner is a whip fire. So
is a powerhouse.
Exactly. So, you know, if we're going to really make reforms, if we're really going to address the corruption, and let's just call it what it is, it's corruption within the party, then we have to be transparent. The only way to be transparent is to have the executive board be publicly elected and the national delegates publicly elected. And let people, if we, not that I agree with superdelegates, so let me be clear on this, but if superdelegates are to be chosen at all, then let people choose them, not party insiders. That's foolishness. And I think intrinsically that's what people have a problem with, that not only is the chair doing whatever they want, see W. Wasserman Schultz and now Tom Perez, they're getting away with it, and now they're consolidating power even more. And you brought up the DNC lawsuit. They even defended their ability and their right to do so. We don't have to run a fair public primary. We're under no obligation whatsoever to do that. And I think to myself, are you trying to lose 2018, and are you trying to destroy yourself as an institution? Because if so, you're doing a phenomenal job. But if the idea is to stay relevant, you're going to have to do an abrupt and immediate 180.
Tulsi Gabbard is talking about reform. And I think one of the key reforms would be that A, public financing should be provided. B, there should be open primary. These are my list. And C, that there should be media availability for free to all candidates.
And you know what? It's not that you can't have additional media, that earned media, right? Let's say they really like you and they want you to be in the spotlight, because that one or two times you did speak that everybody got speaking, it's like you just hit that nail on the head. Fine, earned media is earned media is earned media, but everybody should have at least one a month, once every 2 weeks, a chance to speak and be heard. And that's, I mean, you're right. I am 1,000% in favor of that. It's just, unfortunately, getting the news networks to get on board. They even denied Jill Stein to be in the presidential debates. Now, they came up with an arbitrary percentage. You needed to have 15% polling or whatever, or maybe it was 5%.
5%.
5% polling. That's really disingenuous, because if you're not giving her the exposure in the first place to get the 5%, how do you expect her to get 5%? It's just like with the DNC chair debate on CNN. I almost missed out on being able to be on the stage because I wasn't there for the first forum in Phoenix. They said you had to be present for 3 out of the 4. And I was like, it's a good thing you said 3 out of the 4, because if you had said all 4, I would have raised hell. Everything that needed to be said.
I mean, you made the most out of those 5 minutes. That is incredible.
And that's all we're asking for. That's all the Lindsays and the Jimmys and the Stevens and the everybody else, the Davids.
Yeah.
That's all we're asking for.
Exactly.
Is our 5 minutes to just be heard. Even if it's that only 5 minutes, just give us that chance to be heard.
Exactly.
This is America. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Have an opportunity, right?
Exactly. Now, speaking of bootstraps, you are running in Ohio, in the 1st District, against a Republican who had been in that office since 1995 off and on, right?
Yeah.
And then you have served in the military practically your adult life. But let's talk about the perpetual war, right? You know, our government spends $250 million per day, according to the IB Times.
Yep.
And yet we see poverty and hunger and homelessness.
First and foremost, I served in active duty Air Force. I'm still a reservist, and I am telling you, from that experience and that background and that mindset, we are wasting our time in the Middle East with this perpetual war. This is George Orwellian type things going on right here. This is 1984 being literally spelled out. The inflated defense budget. It isn't going to troops, it isn't going to families, it isn't going to infrastructure, it isn't going to anything other than building new weapon systems and investing in the military-industrial complex. Because I can guarantee you, we still hold squadron and company and unit fundraisers so that we can get paper, pens, keyboards, things that we need for the office, desks, chairs. That isn't coming from the defense budget. As crazy as that sounds, that's not where it's coming from. Our pay and wages has been stagnant. I think we're getting pay raises equal to the rise of inflation.
Right.
Sometimes, some years it's better, some years it's a little bit less. But again, most of the bulk of that money isn't going to benefits for soldiers and airmen. It isn't going to their families to support them during deployments. It isn't going to modernize the military installations by updating the internet to fiber optic or to change the power to clean energy like solar panels on the rooftops or anything like that. Or even buying new vehicles, just transport. What it is, it's going to weapons systems. It's going to these contractors that are doing the same job I could do for 6 figures and providing less quality for it. We could literally have an entire interview based on the corruption of warfare and profiteering off of it. But
$250 million a day.
Yeah.
And here, we are fighting for education. We're fighting for, medical care. We're fighting for all of those things. And then Congress just approved a $700 billion budget, which is about $100 billion more than what the president asked for. And yet, the American people are forced to live in austerity. What do you think could we do with that $250 million based on your district?
And just looking at my district alone, we could have universal health care, we could have tuition forgiveness, we could have school-to-work programs, we could be rebuilding our infrastructure. $250 million a day is massive. And let me put it to you this way. The biggest argument against socialism, socialized medicine, socialized education, is that it's evil, right? That socialism is bad, right?
Right.
However, socialism as an exercise exists in the military. In the military, I get paid a salary.
Yeah.
I get paid BAH and BAS, as in I get a housing allowance and I get a food allowance, meaning I am given tax-free dollars to eat and to live on top of a paycheck, which is already covering my healthcare expenses and my education expenses. And not just my physical health, but my dental health, my vision, and my mental health. I'm getting full coverage, no out-of-pocket expenses anywhere in the world. Socialism is being practiced and succeeding in the military today. Is it always great and good? No, because it's the military. They give you ibuprofen if you break your leg, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's fine. But when if you really need care, if you really want to live within your means, you can. The military provides for you. I'm not saying draft everybody. We just need to expand that. I'm saying that the healthcare, like you're saying, that extra $80 billion could cover tuition in this
Well,
country
the
for a year.
veterans are not being treated very well either. We have a lot of
Oh,
homeless
no.
veterans. We have a lot of veterans who are mentally ill.
Look
The
at
suicide
Oklahoma.
rate for veterans, from what I understand, is pretty high.
It's the highest out of any of the suicide groups, so to speak. But you mentioned homeless veterans and what the money could do. Look at Oklahoma. They have a program where they house homeless people, and it costs less to house them and send someone to mentor them for a year than it would to put them in prison or in hospitals. And we look at California. It costs the state of California $70,000 a year per inmate. You could send them to Harvard for the same thing with room and board. So what we have
Well,
here,
you're talking about the privatized prison, right? I mean,
exactly.
It's incredible.
It's horrendous. So when we talk about the military-industrial complex and it's just the complete disregard for the problems here at home, it's because the people in office, they don't care. They do not represent us. That has been blatantly obvious for several decades now, if not longer, if not further back. The last president who probably gave a damn about us was Carter, and before that, it was probably FDR.
Yeah, exactly.
So where's our leadership? We need leaders in office. We need people who actually represent people. I'm not saying I'm the best, the brightest, the greatest thing since sliced bread, but
your mother should be very proud of you.
Look,
I feel like
you know what? Thank you. I'm going to tell her that when she gets back. But I know what it's like to live with the laws as they currently are. I see what it means to live in poverty. I have experienced it myself to a greater or lesser degree. You know, I see that if you're a minority in this country, you're treated very differently just because of the color of your skin. There's a higher incarceration rate proportionately for black men than there is for any other minority group out there. So that $70,000 a year being spent imprisoning our nation's young black men could be spent sending them to Ivy League schools and making them doctors and engineers or architects or what have you. There is so much more to invest in a country through education than there is in the incarceration rates. But where's the profit in that? Well,
Exactly.
there you have it. There's no morality in our government anymore. And I get that right now is an oxymoron, morality and politics, but you get what you vote for.
Exactly.
If you vote for the lesser of two evils, you're still getting evil. So if you're not getting people that are worth voting for, then that's, I shouldn't say it's impossible for regular people to run for office because
it's very hard.
It's such an investment of time, money, and resources.
And emotion.
So no wonder regular mom and pops don't join up. No wonder the grocer at Kroger doesn't do it, or the teacher that makes $30,000 a year, or the electrician that makes maybe $60,000 a year but has 3 kids and a wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is why we have lawyers and bankers and billionaires running for office and winning, because they can. And then it's hereditary. It almost seems caste-like. It's just like the military. It almost seems caste-like. Everybody who enlists is second, third, fourth generation. And
Right.
same thing with politics.
Yeah, right. Well, let's talk about coming into 2018. I mean, you have a peculiar position in that you're running your own race, and at the same time, because you have run for chair of the DNC, you have, you know, a global perspective on the election. Now, 2018 is a critical year.
We have to work together. We outnumber the establishment hundreds of thousands to one. I mean, literally, we dominate in terms of numbers. So if you're Dem enter, do it. If you're GOP infiltrate, do it. If you're Dem exit, please do it. Green enter, all of it, do it.
It's time for coalition building.
Coalition building. Don't impede each other's efforts. That's all I'm asking. I'm running for Congress in Ohio's 1st Congressional District. I intend to run against Steve Chabot. I do not care if I have a D or an R next to my name to make that happen. I care about getting that man out of office. That must be our focus. Right now, if you're Dem enter, your sole purpose should be to take over local parties, to take over state parties, to take over the national delegate system so that we can push the Perez's and the Debbie Wasserman Schultz's out. That needs to be the focus. And if you're Dem exit, don't get in the way, because it's still achieving the same goal on a parallel path.
Right.
You're getting the establishment out and replacing them with our people. So Dem exit, help get people get into the Green Party, run as independents. give them tools and resources. I absolutely believe that we can win elections in 2018 all across the board. Is it going to be sweeping?
What kind of assistance do you need from the folks?
Well, honestly, there's always the liking and sharing my social media. Ronan for Congress on Facebook, Ronan the number 4 Progress on Twitter, website ronanforcongress.com. There's that. There's also the donations. You can also donate on any of those platforms. Donor box, PayPal, what have you.
We have your website on the screen.
Oh, okay, perfect. But in general, it's getting the word out, right?
Right.
I know it sounds silly. It's about building that exposure, building the brand, harassing your local candidates to be like, look, this is what we're talking about with leadership, not this nonsense that's going on over here. So what can you do to help? I'm not asking you to break the bank. If you can only afford $5, $5 it is. If you can afford $5 each month, great, do the monthly donation. If all you can do is write and share and click and do whatever, I'm happy for it. That is all I ask, is to do your part. Just jump into it and get people. If you can get 2 of your friends that are politically apathetic to vote, and to vote for a progressive no less, you've already won. So let's do that. Let's get out the vote. Let's get people out there. Our Voice Initiative has an app to make it easier, fun, and interactive. It's an app. You can download it on your phone. You can email me. I'll get you the iPhone, iStore beta testing invite. Just go door to door. Be like, hey, I'm Sally. I'm just going around figuring out what people care about. Thank you. Move on to the next one. It's that simple. That's how we make a difference.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, isn't he wonderful? So let's keep an eye on this guy. He's young, he's dynamic, smart, full of energy. Sam Ronan is going places, and we will be watching him, and hopefully you guys will support him as well. Go to his webpage. Thank you so much for joining us, and good night.